Good afternoon, everybody. This is There's No Crying in Crochet, where we solve all your frustrations about crochet and have some fun with true crime when we're all done. I
Absolutely.
am Debbie of Madam Stitch, and I am joined by,
It's a busy crochet.
and we are here to help you solve your problems. Um, Let me get my banners up here. We'll do the business first.
Mm.
Um, we are watching live on Facebook and YouTube at the moment. So make sure that you subscribe to both of our YouTube channels, Busy Crochet and Madam Stitch Crochet, because we put other things on our channels besides just the podcast. Now, I have to insert here, I watched a webinar yesterday on how to do the best YouTube videos. And I have got some ideas for some stuff that's going to go up on my channel. So you need to subscribe to see all that cool stuff that's about to arrive. So
Nice.
we'll see when I have time to make that happen. Anyway, let's go on to this one. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure that you give StreamYard permission to display your name to us because anonymity is great, but this is not the place. So we don't want to see just Facebook user. We want to see your bright and sunny name when we talk to you.
You like
So
to say your
please
name.
make sure that you do that. All right. We start every podcast with a little bit of catch up, and Biz and I have been figuring out what's up with our weeks this week. So Biz, I'm going to let you start.
It's been hot as usual. I mean, that doesn't change. We have just discovered that we have a gas leak in our house that's being taken care of. Hallelujah. And we are, as far as myself in the crochet world, I've been working on doing some it's over there. But anyway, doing some tutorials on a new lemon scrubby that I'm going to have up on my YouTube channel pretty quick.
That's awesome. So you are going to have some stuff coming out on
Yes.
YouTube very soon. Nicely done. I have been working very hard at some presentations and patterns and things, but last Sunday was my mom's birthday. She's no longer with us, but we went to a Phillies game where they played the Kansas City Royals. I'm from around Kansas City. My mom would sit in front of the TV and just roar at the Royals. I mean, she would just go, she knew the players, and anytime we would talk about our teams, now I love the Royals too, but I don't watch them because now I live near Philly. We would have a little trash talking going on. So, and my mom was super nice. So that was so funny. But on Sunday afternoon, the Phillies played the Royals in Philadelphia. So my
Oh,
husband and I
wow.
went and watched. Of course, the Phillies whipped up on the Royals. That's an awesome thing. And the next day was our anniversary. So we had the grandkids come over. We hadn't seen it for a month. We watched the Super Mario Brothers movie. We played video games. It was awesome. So we had a
Wow.
little respite from all the work with some fun
Yeah, it
family
sounds like
stuff.
a fabulous
Yeah.
weekend. And you
So,
had mentioned that your mom would yell at the TV. That kind of flip side with my mother-in-law and the Packers. That woman
mm,
can yell at the Packers like nobody else. I think
yep.
it's a girl thing. When you're
I don't
passionately
know. My
involved.
my husband will sit there and psychoanalyze the players. I just don't understand why he's not doing blah blah blah.
That's
Gee,
my
why
husband
are
too.
you not the coach and we're living in luxury? I mean, what is going on here?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
anyway,
We
all
all know it
right.
would be so much better if they took over, right?
Yeah, right. I have the feeling bad things would happen. Anyway, it is time for us to get started. So
Yes.
today, this is episode 14, Biz. This is awesome.
Yay.
So
We are doing
once a
well.
month, we're going to be doing an educational podcast, working our way through the parts of a pattern,
Mhm.
because I'm seeing all over Facebook people who will even admit that they don't know how to read patterns, and they'll
Yeah,
come across something that's pretty standard, and it just hurts my soul that they don't know
I
what
know
that
it.
means.
I know
So
it.
we're going to start today by talking about the yarn section of a pattern. So that really is after you get through the introduction to the pattern, that's really the first thing
Mhm.
that you come across in a pattern. So we're going to walk you through some
Oh
things that
goodness.
you'll see in that section,
Mhm.
and how to make it user friendly for you. All
Yes.
right.
Because a lot of
All right. So,
patterns that we run across are going to be, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but some are company owned, and they will give you information for a specific brand of yarn as opposed to just worsted weight or DK or something like
mhm.
that.
Yeah, a lot of my patterns, I will list the yarn that I used in the sample or
Mhm.
samples because sometimes I make
Mhm.
multiples. And then I will say maybe any worsted weight yarn will work,
Mhm.
although it might slightly change the size of your finished project because not
Oh,
all
that's
worsted weight yarns, not all DK weight yarns are
are
created
equal.
equal.
Yeah.
So even though it says any worsted weight, it just means that you're not necessarily going to change the size and shape significantly enough to adversely affect the outcome. So
Yeah.
you're just going to get something that might be slightly smaller or slightly larger.
The other thing too is, and not this is like talking about another part we're going to be talking about, but matching your gauge as well is
Oh,
important.
we're going to hit that one hard.
That's a different day.
And that one we need to have our big girl pants on for
Yes,
because
we
that's
do.
a tough one. All right. So let's try to talk about the information we might find in the yarn section. What have we got, Biz?
Okay, so what you might find in the yarn section, I'm going to talk kind of like you did with the way that I write a pattern. I will put in the information as far as what was the sample made out of. In that information, I will provide everything that I can get off of the yarn band. And I'm just going to show one of my common yarn bands is I love this cotton. And so
Yeah.
all of that information, the ounces, the grams, the yards, the meters, I will put all of that information into that section so that when you're comparing what you're looking at, you can either match it up perfectly or find something similar.
Right. So I'm just going to show the information that I just put in one of my recent patterns. So the company comes first,
Hmm.
then the name of the yarn. Then you want to include the fiber content because that can make a big difference in what you're choosing. The weight of the yarn. Right after that, a lot of people will put the category number. So worsted weight is number 4. But then in parentheses, we put um, this is written a lot of different ways by a lot of
Hmm.
different designers, but we include this information. The imperial system is what we use in the United States, so that's ounces and yards. And
Hmm.
then the metric, which is grams and meters. And the ounces is the weight, the yards or the meters, that's the length.
Hmm.
And you take those two things to get the information that you want. And on my label, it looks like that.
Okay.
All right.
And a lot of them look like that as well.
Yeah.
Every label is different, unfortunately.
Right. And then after that, I would list, for instance, if it's in one color, I will list the number of the color that the company has listed. So for this one,
Yeah.
the name of the color is Grand Canyon and it's color number 122G. So I'll put
Mhm.
all of that information in there. And then I'll either say, excuse me, it takes one skein, or I will say how many yards I think it will take
Mhm.
so that you know what you need.
I've started personally doing a lot of weighing of yarn. I never used to do that before. But in the last, I want to say year and a half, when I start something, I weigh the skein. When I end something, I weigh the skein.
Hmm.
And obviously that tells me how many ounces I used. And then that helps me figure out how many yards or meters or whatever I can say, because I like to provide both ounces and yardage as far as, how much I used, how much you're going to need, that kind of stuff. I try to make each of my patterns both US and UK terms friendly.
Yes. All right. I was just trying to put a banner in here. How would we figure out the yardage we need if we know how many ounces it is. So
Mhm.
you take the yardage on the skein.
Yep. So I'll just put up my sample.
Yes. And you would divide that by
The 3.5 ounces.
the number of ounces in that skein, and that
Yes.
equals the number of ounces, sorry,
Yards
ounces
per ounce.
per number of yards per ounce. All right, let me see
Mhm.
if I can get this up there. Yeah, typing and trying to talk at the same time. Let me see if we'll make this work. All right, let's see if this worked. The yardage on the skein divided by the number of ounces in the
Mhm.
skein equals the number of yards per ounce.
Yes.
Yeah, so if, let's say, for instance, your skein is 3.5 ounces and it's got, this one has 260 yards, we would divide 260 by 3.5, and that would give us the number of yards. I think it's something close to 60 or something. Let's say just 60.
Well, I've done this one a couple of times. So this one's
Ooh,
52 ounces.
do tell.
The 180 divided by 3.5 is 52 ounces or 52 yards per
52
ounce.
yards.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Um,
then you would know how many yards per ounce, and if you
right.
knew it took 2 or 3 ounces, you could multiply that by the number of yards per ounce.
So when you've got a ball, just a random ball that
Mhm,
you've got in your stash, if you can weigh it, you know how many ounces you have. And if you know where it came from, you can get that information off the label. So a lot of times,
mhm.
if we've got mystery yarn, you're kind of guessing anyway. Those are not times when you're going to pull that yarn out for a really specific project.
Right.
Mystery yarn is used for, um, you know, things that are not really precise. Just because if you
Yeah.
run out, it's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Neve, she is the lady who does all of my tech
Oh,
editing
here we
for,
go.
yeah.
All right. Do you want me to put that comment up?
Yeah, because I can't. I don't have the ability to do that.
It's very helpful to also put the meterage, yardage, as well as the grams and ounces, especially if only a small amount is used in the pattern. Yep. And makers may have stats available. Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. So we try
So
to put, as designers, we try to put as much information in the
yeah,
yarn section as we possibly can.
yes.
Thank you.
And Neva's really helped me to tighten up my what I provide in my patterns just because she helps me think about people. I mean, like I everything I do is US based, of course, my
Mhm.
yarns and everything, but she thinks like a Brit. So it helps me to offer up that information on both sides of it. So yeah.
Right, now this is getting ahead of ourselves, but
Mhm.
patterns are written in US terms or UK terms, which are the common ones that we see in English.
Yeah.
And so I generally try to, because I work in US crochet terminology, I
Mhm.
try to list the imperial system first, but always include the
Mhm.
grams and meters, um, for those who are in England and Europe who might be using my patterns.
Mhm. It's always a good
Um,
research to have.
Now, we had talked a little bit about what happens if some of that information is missing.
Yeah.
And actually, there are skeins of yarn, even
Mhm.
some of the most common yarns that we use, that don't include all of that information for you. If
Mhm.
it's produced in the United States, they generally will give you the ounces and the yards, but they might not give you the grams or the meters.
Mhm.
Um, so in that case, you sort of have to do a little bit of math to make the transfer from one to the other.
Mhm.
Um,
And vice versa,
there
when you're using British yarn, a lot of times they'll just put grams and meters as opposed to providing ounces and yards. So, have you found a new best friend online? I know what my new best friend is.
Well, I was just about to show, I don't think I have it in here. Let me put this up. I found that you can just go to Google
Yep,
and
that's what
find
I
any old converter.
do.
Just you can type in convert from ounces to grams or anything like that, and it will do the math for you. You can go
Yep.
from one direction to the other, and it will. This is just one that I found, but this is the kind of website that you're looking for that will help you do the math for you if you don't want to remember all of the conversion types.
Mhm.
But a
Yes.
simple Google, I think Google might even have a conversion calculator. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, 'cause typically what I do is I'm sorry, I'm moving my computer around so much. Typically what I do in my, research is I will just type in meters to yard conversion and something pops up.
mhm. Yeah.
So and
So
then
there
you
are
can just
lots of
plug
ways to
in
find
numbers.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, there are lots of ways to find it. Um, I think I mean, the yarn section basically just covers the type of yarn you need,
Yes.
the amount of yarn you need, the colors you need.
Mhm.
Um, if you want to make that pattern exactly the way you see it, all
Yeah.
that information should be in there.
Let's talk
Um,
about, particular fiber content.
oh,
Do we have that on
yes,
here?
we do not. But I actually just did a presentation on that very thing. So hold on to your
Hey,
hats.
girl, let's go. Do this
So
thing.
the three main categories of fiber content that we find in yarns would be plant, animal, and synthetic.
Mhm.
There are other types of yarns, and there are all kinds of blends, but those are the three main types. And I think with your projects, knowing how much stretch and how much twist those yarns have makes a big difference in how, let's say you want to substitute a yarn, you really need to think about those things when you're substituting a yarn. Going back to my previous comment, not all worsted weight yarns are created equal. And so the fiber content that you see, for instance, I'll go back to my Lion brand. Let me see if this is the right one. Yeah. So it's 100% acrylic.
Mhm.
This particular yarn has a lot of stretch and a lot of sheen and a fair amount of fuzz. So the twist is
And it's
rather light.
also what I would consider a loftier one where it's not spun
Mhm.
super tight.
Right. So that's going to affect, you really need to stick to the fiber content that you see in the pattern because that will definitely affect the
Mhm.
outcome and it could adversely affect it.
Mhm. So, when you're looking at something like a Heartland versus, say, like a Simply Soft, and the Heartland is twisted very, very loosely. I wouldn't say very, very loosely, but it's looser. And then you go
Hmm.
and you try to substitute, say, like a number 4 worsted Simply Soft in that same section, you're gonna end up with a smaller product
Hmm.
because of that. So when you're saying that, all number 4s are not equal, that's what I think of when because even things like, in the Lion brand world, Wool Ease is I mean, I know that that one's a wool acrylic blend, but Wool Ease is also a number 4 yarn that is much smaller and falls more closely to a Simply Soft than a Heartland.
Right. I just did a project in two different brands of recycled cotton,
Nice. I love
both
recycled
worsted weight, right? But one of them turned out bigger than the other. And I
Okay.
did them in the same session with the same hook. So the tension was pretty much the same, but they came out differently. So when you're
Yeah.
looking at that yarn section, be cautious about substituting yarn. There are a lot of things to think about. I actually have a resource for that. It's a checklist that you can go through and fill in all of the items like fiber content, and gauge and things like that to figure out if you've got a fairly close match when you're trying to substitute yarn.
So make sure that when we are done today, you put that resource in the description so that we can find that. Because unless you
Oh,
have a
it's
link.
it is absolutely there.
Okay, cool.
You know what? My banner making skills are lacking today. So
Um, okay.
it's in my YouTube description for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't have anything like that, so I'm gonna have to find yours.
Ah, there you go. I mean, it's simply put together. It doesn't go into a huge amount of detail, but it basically takes into account the things that we've been talking about.
Do you, because you had said that there are 3 different types of fibers that yarn is primarily made from. Do you think that what do you I should say, what do you think is the main difference between using, say, a number 4 acrylic as opposed to a number 4 with a natural? Do you feel like there's
It's sort of it depends. So animal fibers are stretchy and spongy. They're not they have a lot of loft, and so they
Mhm,
don't
okay.
necessarily now wool can be all different kinds of twists, right? So you can get some that's very tightly spun or longer
Mhm,
fibers or whatever. So it sort of depends on the wool that you've
mhm,
chosen, but things like alpaca and llama and camel, those are really lofty. So they take up a little bit more space and stretch. Whereas plant
mhm,
fibers have short little fibers that are spun together and they pretty much have no stretch. I mean, there are a little bit of stretch in some of the yarns that aren't
mhm,
mercerized, but linen and bamboo and those sorts of things don't have a lot of stretch. So that tends to
mhm,
keep the project pretty much the shape that you make it. So then
mhm.
there are
Yeah, it's pretty
blends.
stiff.
Yeah, so I love working with blends because it brings the qualities of yeah, it brings the
That one's a
qualities
hemp.
of those 2 different fibers. That
Yeah.
that one is now is that soft? I've never used hemp.
No, no. And that's one thing I was gonna say is that, when you're talking about natural fibers, depending on how tightly they spin it, because like this is a fairly, it's in my project box, so I gotta kind of just drag it out here. But it's pretty fairly thin as opposed to this cotton, which is kind of on the chunky side, when you put them
Yeah,
next to each other.
right.
So this one, it works up nice, and I guess when you rub your hand over it, it's on the soft side, but it's one of those ones where you're like, "Ooh, I don't want that up against my skin for a long time because I'm
Yeah.
gonna exfoliate myself." So there's a big difference
No,
when
I
you're looking at your fibers.
yes. Yes. Um, yeah, like I said, I just did a presentation on this, so it's fresh on my mind, but, yeah, the fiber content, I really like to do cotton with a little bit of wool in it or,
Mm,
um, wool is not my friend, although I do a lot of stuff with merino. I love merino because it's very
yeah,
soft,
yeah,
but regular Highland w oh my gosh, Highland wool is like putting on a scrubby. It's just I don't know how you do this,
yeah.
and it's super warm. Cotton is not as warm, which is why it's used for, um, lighter climates, for warmer weather, it's lighter, and wool is used for warmth and water resistance, so
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
all
say
have
that if
their
you're looking for a project that has natural fibers, but you wanna use it for, like, a baby, you know how you got the soaker pants that you put over a diaper, and you just want
mhm,
pants on instead, like, those work really well, but you're gonna need to also find a baby-friendly wool because if you're using straight up
mhm,
wool, it's another one of those things where it's pokey because of the small hair
yep,
fibers and all that
yep,
stuff, and it's so, like, yarn is fun, but you just have to use, like, common sense when you're thinking about, "What am I using it for?"
yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, so many things to think about yarn. Well, I wanted to make sure that in today's podcast, we talked specifically about the information you will find in that yarn section.
Yes.
Um, so that if you're learning to read a pattern, what are you looking at?
Mhm.
I try to encourage my tech editing clients to not just say one ball of this yarn because then you're just sending someone to the internet to look it up and God knows if they're going to find it. So you have to be more
And like you said, not
specific.
all yarn is equal.
Exactly. And I think we covered that. We showed what was on the yarn label. We didn't
Mhm,
talk about weights and weight category because I think that's probably a discussion for another day.
mhm.
Um, but I think we've covered all the things that you will see in the yarn section.
Mhm.
Can you think of anything else?
I can't. No, I mean, if we're talking that we're going to talk something else about yarn later, no, I think we've basically covered it all because
I
my
think
main
we've covered
thing
it.
was I wanted to make sure that people understood that you can go into your stash and find a ball of yarn. If you know what it is, you can find a label. Everything's online anymore. You can find a label even
Mhm.
if you don't have it and figure out how many yards you have so you can use all of the information that a lot of designers are putting on Ravelry and on their Etsy and all of this stuff. A lot of designers are beginning to put in, you need so many yards or it's between so many yards.
Yes,
So,
and I think that's getting more common. It used to
yeah,
be it was a crapshoot as to whether you were gonna
good
find
luck.
the information you needed, right? It's a puzzle. Put it
Yeah,
together and see if you can come out with the project.
yes.
But now we all are educated, and we make sure that that information is in our
Yes.
patterns. At least we hope so.
Yes. Try to make sure that the question is answered before it's even put out.
Yes, that's right. That's why we have tech editors to
For
go,
sure.
"You didn't answer that question, so go back
Yes.
and put that." Yeah. All right, I
Yeah,
think we've covered all things
I think so.
yarn related. Next time, we'll probably go on to I don't know if we'll be ready for a gauge swatch yet then. We
No,
probably
but
will
you
have to
do.
talk
We're
about
probably
other
going to be
tools.
yeah, tools,
Mhm.
all of the things that you're going to find in that section.
Yep. Oh gosh, that's man, the sky's the limit on that one,
It
right?
is.
Depending upon
It
what
is.
and that's gonna be a fun one because you and I make different things, so we'll
Hmm.
have different things in our tools.
For sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, Biz,
Yes.
besides worrying about your gas leak this week, what
Oh,
did you
God.
watch in on TV?
Okay, so I had 2 things that I was watching on BritBox. I did a new one, and it was just a 3 or 4 episode season, one of those ones. It's called The Tower. I think it was 4 episodes. There's 2 seasons, and, it's so good. It's so good. It's a story about a detective, obviously, who there's this crime that happens that involves 2 cops, but there's this underlying story of was there corruption, wasn't there corruption, people died, how did they die, why did they die, all of that stuff. It just was a really well-written story.
I definitely have to put that on my watch list because I've
Mhm.
seen advertisements for that and it looks really good.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, I was also on BritBox this week, briefly, but I found a new, also new to me, series called Redemption
Yes.
about a female detective who is from Liverpool. And we find out through the course of, I've only watched one episode. So we found through the course of the episode that her daughter left home when her daughter was 17 and they
Okay.
had no contact after that. But all of a sudden, she gets a call from police in Dublin about a body that they found. And
Mhm.
she goes, "No, I don't know anybody by that name." And they go, "Well, the DNA matches."
Oh, no.
Okay. So she figures out that this is her daughter,
Mhm.
and her daughter had changed her name, created a life. She has 2 teenage kids, um, who the mother has been talking trash to them about the grandmother. So we don't really know what happened to make them split, but we know that
We're
it's
gonna
caused a
find
lot
out.
of heartache, right?
Yeah.
So and the female detective has now transferred for 6 months to Dublin under the
Okay.
guise of just helping them out.
Oh,
But
sure.
she's going to look into her daughter's death
Mhm.
more um, more clearly and take care of the kids because the
Mhm.
father's not in the picture.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. Like, there's
It is
more to come. Yeah, so,
lots of things going
alright,
on.
so Redemption and The Tower are 2
Redemption in the Tower, and I actually might have time to watch TV this weekend. Yay!
Yay!
So excited.
That's awesome. I won't. I have a lot this
Oh,
weekend is super busy
oh,
for me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I watch too much TV as it is, so it's probably better that I'm getting out of the house.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Just don't, dry up, melt in the heat
Speaking
that
of
is
which,
Florida.
so we ran out of water in our house. Like we always have a case of water and we just ran out and we just haven't gotten any more. Okay. So I don't like drinking city water. I have a real problem with it, but I'm desperate. And so
Yeah.
today, so today I got myself a glass of ice water and I texted my husband. I'm like, there's a flavor. The water has a flavor. And so he's like, well, and blah, blah, blah. And he told me about the filters and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, but maybe I just don't need it. And I sent him a gif of, how when SpongeBob is pretending to not need water for Sandy
Yeah.
and he just tries it. He's like, I don't need it. I don't need it. That's what I feel like. I'm here, guys, right? I am not drinking the tasty water.
So when we get off, I can
Mhm.
just imagine you crawling to the kitchen going, "I'm not gonna drink it. I'm not gonna drink it. I have to drink it." You know?
I do have to drink it. I am drinking it because I don't have a choice. I'm gonna die if I don't.
Ugh.
Because I
Well,
live on
I
water.
think
I don't drink much of anything else.
I drink tons of water during the day, so and that's a good thing.
Mhm.
All right, Miss Biz, I believe we've solved all the problems of
Yes,
the yarn section and solved the true crime problem for this week. So,
absolutely.
with
Any
that
suggestions for
said,
everybody?
yep, let me encourage all of you to catch us every Friday afternoon at 2
Mhm.
p.m. Eastern and
1 p.m. Central.
1 p.m. Central, or you can also Google a time converter and see what time it is for where you are in the world, because I'm
Yes.
sure we've got viewers everywhere. Um, and join us next week where we will be continuing our discussion about granny squares. And this month is just making me so happy. And I will have a fun story about my younger grandson whose birthday is Granny Square Day. So I will be premiering the gift I have designed for
Nice.
him this year. So excited. So
That's
excited.
awesome. I love it. Oh, and then we should probably remind everybody, if you don't know, um, it's not official, but it's official. Granny Square Day is August 15th, so that's the day you go on social media. If you're a sharer, make sure you use that hashtag and tag us in it so we can see it.
You know what? You can use hashtag Granny Squares Rock, and we would love that.
That's awesome.
All right, darling. It is time
Oh,
to say au revoir. So I am
au
going to
revoir.
say goodbye from Madam Stitch
And
and
bye from Busy
Biz.
Crochet.
That's right. And we will see you next week at the same time. Happy
Yes.
crocheting, everybody.
Yes. Have a great day.